If you're not a slave, I pray you're a servant. Serving someone else. Serving others. Being a servant, having a servant's heart and attitude. And if you're not a servant, I pray that you're a friend. But it's time out for being a slave. You know what I find comical? People always want to talk about slavery. Want to talk about how we were in slavery and been a part of slavery for hundreds of years. Truth. No doubt to that. But how long are you going to continue to be a slave to yourself? How long are you going to continue to slave to your flesh? How long are you going to be a slave to your unimportant and irrelevant spending habits? How long are you going to be a slave to your emotions? How long are you going to be a slave to your sexual addictions? How long are you going to be a slave? It's time to wake up from being a slave? Yeah, you right. Starts with you. Time for you to stop being a slave. I'm tired of being a slave. How about you? Come at me about being no slave. Look yourself in the mirror. Are you a slave to your job? Are you a slave to that woman or that man? Are you a slave to your children? Better yet, are you a slave to yourself? How about we stop being slaves seeking the approval of others? How about we stop being slaves to acceptance? How about we stop being slaves to emotionalism? How about we stop being slaves? How about we stop being slaves to media? How about we stop being slaves to our body parts? How about we stop being slaves to searching and seeking and trying to find a love that fits our lifestyle instead of trying to find a lifestyle of love? How about we stop being slaves to our petty thoughts? How about we stop being slaves to what people think about us? How about we stop being slaves to our mouths? How about we stop being slaves to the system? How about we stop being slaves to false realities and lies? The reason why I say slave, because if you're not being a servant, if you're not serving others, if you're not serving somebody, you're serving yourself. And if you're serving yourself, you can't help nobody else. See, you got slaves, you got servants, and then you got friends, right? Slave to those bad habits. You know what I'm saying? Slave to those bad thoughts. Bad habits are habits that bring no benefit to you or to anyone else when the rubber meets the road in the long run. Okay? Slave to those bad thoughts. Those thoughts that don't bring benefit to you or anyone else when the rubber meets the road in the long run. You dig? Being a slave to your flesh. Wanting to satisfy the flesh at any and all costs. When later on down the road, right, when it's all said and done, it really didn't benefit anyone. And it damn sure didn't benefit you. Bottom line, man, is you cannot serve two masters. We cannot serve two masters. Okay? You just cannot do it. Either you're going to serve one and you're going to hate the other, or you're going to cling to one and you're going to despise the other. You dig? It's time out for being a slave, man. I'm tired of being a slave. And I ain't talking about the slave of the system. I'm talking about being a slave unto the lust of the eye, the lust of the flesh, and the pride of life. Time out for being a slave. Now it's time to move into being a servant. and eventually into being a friend. We've grown past being, demarginalized, and we've grown beyond being degraded, and we've grown above being put down. But yet we steadily put ourselves down. We steadily talk about one another, and we steadily take from one another, not love one another, but steal from one another, not encourage and lift one another up, but pull one another down. Why? Matthew 6:24 says that, we cannot serve both God and God's system of doing things, and man, or the world, and this world system and its way of doing things. Especially, God's system is built on love and giving and servitude, and the world system is built on selfishness, self-gain, and money. It doesn't work that way. Got to choose who you gonna serve. And I choose, first of all, not to be a slave, but I also choose to be a servant, because I know from being a servant will lead to being a friend. People say, I refuse to be a slave. I'm not being a slave no more. Not being a slave to this worldly system. Not being a slave to this false and fake and phony religious system. You know what I'm saying? I'm not being a slave to what people want me to do and what people say I should do. I'm tired of being a slave. That's out. It's all about taking care of me. But question, are you being a slave to yourself? See, you're going to serve somebody, whether it's God, whether it's the devil, or whether it's your flesh. You got to make the choice. But you can't serve two. You can only serve one. You can't serve yourself and say, but I'm loving and serving others. You can't serve God in heaven's system and say, but I'm gonna live by this worldly system that's about money. No, you have to make a choice. You know what I'm saying? And everybody talking about, well, I'm not finna be a slave. I'm tired of being a slave. We've been slaves for 400 years. But how long you been a slave to yourself? As long as you've been living. How long have you been a slave to yourself? Have you been a slave to the lust of the eye and the lust of the flesh and the pride of life? That's what it's time out from being a slave to. For real, for real. So, let me encourage you to make a choice. Are we going to be slaves? Or are we going to be servants? You dig? Please remember to like this video, share this video, hit that subscribe button so you're always notified whenever I upload content. This is your man, Levon. This has been Levon Says. Please join me Monday through Friday for your weekly motivational content. I'm out.